We are in gear. For a long time, I thought we were going to be stuck in neutral today. We seem to be cycles within cycles. It was one of those crazy non-happening events. But in the last little while, it's been good because we've been refurbishing our house. It's council clean-up time. That's the time where we all go out and find new things. And it saves going to IKEA. It's all out there on the curb. So there we go. This is vk3sl test missions on 160 and on UHF, the afternoon session. This is where we use modulated sound to, or tone tests, to reveal what's happening here and an opportunity for people to test their receivers.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just thought I'd, if the beamits popped, you could just run, you can get 50 watts of AM out of the coda and just use your SIG gen on AM. And you've got a dB down from what you've got.
Oh, that's right. It's about the same as what I've got.
As good as anything.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I didn't think of that. Well,
if you don't push it too much, it's super high.
Okay, so if you just work at about 50 watts, so would I need to do anything different?
No, all you do, you just look at the RF output, and you can tell if you, as you turn the audio, if you modulate it, set it say 20 watts and modulate it fully, and you can put a tone in, look at the scope, and you turn up the power, and when it starts to go non-linear, you just back it off a bit.
Yes, just back it off at that point,
Or you can do it by ear,
or
you can tell also, if you're looking at the RF current meter, when it starts to go backwards on peaks, then it's going negative. It's the thing's compensating and sort of the protection circuits coming in. So that's easy enough to do. And look, I was getting 40, 45, 50 watts out of the 6801 here, and it's it sounds
right.
Fine.
Okay.
There's no more stress than running 100 watts of FM.
Well, look, it's probably a lot easier, to be honest. Well, there we go. That's a really good solution. And so would I need to change the input, though? I'd have to... there's another input on the codan, isn't there? Or do I use
No, all you're doing is feeding RF into it.
Yeah. I thought there was another sort of input point.
No, see, you're just sending... You're just amplifying what's coming out of your signal generator.
Yeah, okay.
FM
or
AM.
Yep.
And I assume the AM on those ones is quite good. And you'd probably find it works okay.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll certainly test that.
A stopgap measure for the
yes.
Look,
yes, I thought it had popped today. In fact, it was not looking good. In fact, it was only in the last little while that I was able to coax it back into action again. But the problem is, look, there's so many levels of issues, and you dealt with them all in your video. But
yes, that's right.
But mechanically, the thing is crap because because it's not rigid enough. All the mounted parts are shorting out, and they're not doing what they should.
I think. Look, I just built another mitters, use those power supplies, which are amazingly strong. Massive things.
Oh yes, that's right.
But look, I've been doing a lot of research. I've got the 4-valve one working really well.
Yep.
And it's and I've worked out transformers for backwards impedance matching and stuff like that.
Yes.
And it's good to have a lot of junk. Don't throw everything away, because I've gone through about a dozen transformers.
Right.
And some work, some don't work, some work okay, and just the odd one really stands out.
Yeah.
And you get good power match audio in and choke.
Well, you're using old filament transformers in reverse, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. And any old, if you haven't got a choke, any big, thunky 385 volts a side transformer is good for a choke.
Okay.
Use the 385 volt thing.
Yes. And, I think Hyacinth Mod has certainly got a lot going for it.
Yep.
And I think if you've got those massive filament transformers, you can just take the whole, you don't need to even worry about chokes.
Yeah, maybe not. The thing is, see, you measure the inductance of them. It's all, some big things don't work and some little things do.
Right.
How well they're built.
Well, you've got multiple taps, of course, so there's many test points along the way.
That's right. And now, like, I've got the... I'll have to work on the Adcock's... he had a 160 metre emitters.
Oh, yes.
And he converted it to long wave. It's useless VFO, it's crap, I'm not going to use it.
Yep.
So I might convert it back to 160.
Right.
Now, it's got 2 TV tubes in it. They're only 20 watts. I might stick 807s or 6146 or something.
Yes.
And it's a nice rack mounting thing. It looks quite neat. And it's got its own power supply, a big hefty transformer.
Right.
So all you need is a modulator with an amp. You've got that radio parts one.
Well, that's working. That's what I'm using now.
Yes, that's right.
It's working fine.
Do the 2 and 3 double fives get hot? Probably hardly a hot at all.
No, not at all. No, it's fine. No, it holds up very nicely. There's no problem with that amp at all, and you notice when it's even got overload LEDs on it.
That's right.
The meter's not going, but that's not a problem. And and I just run it into a little Palmeco. It's a very good filament transformer, and in reverse, and then that just goes to to the reactor and some big capacitors, and Bob's your uncle. Just feeds it straight into the modulator.
Yeah, well, that sounds quite
So
good.
look, for what it is, I mean, I think that's probably the most stable part of it, that and the power supply. But the big problem in this thing, I mean, is the oscillator. It's the oscillator and the buffer, and I just don't seem to be able to get them to sing, and they're not tuned properly.
Look,
and there's
I
something.
looked at that. It was just even not worth looking. You'd pull it to bits and build a new one.
Mm.
You could do what I do and just have a 50 ohm to grid impedance matching.
That's the thing.
And feed the codan into it.
I looked at your video the other day, and I was thinking that would be that'd be probably the better way to go. It's just a question of getting the understanding how to where to tap the coil and how to. I suppose.
Well, for a start, you can just use a tuner in reverse.
Okay.
Yeah, antenna tuner, and you'll probably be able to do it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's creative thinking, lateral thinking. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, maybe that could work well. A
and
Z match
say
or something.
2807s in parallel. It's not super high impedance to those grids.
Mm.
It's within maybe a few hundred or something.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, that's all within the ballpark of an antenna tuner. Interesting.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, or just, I mean, look, it probably isn't a big deal tapping the coilies. You're not going to, it's only going to be efficiency, that's all. But the problem is that wouldn't be metered or anything like that. But I suppose that could be all sorted out downstream. And, but look, yes, just using a codan. And then how do you attenuate the codan? You just put in you made up your own little attenuator?
Well, it just depends how much signal you put into it.
Ah.
I just turn the attenuation up and down the signal generator.
Oh, okay. So you get it down to 1 or 2 watts. I didn't think it was finely calibrated as that. I thought it was, yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, if you say feed the output of the Marconi or the other one I've got, you just turn it up from nothing and just put it up to when the transistor saturate to 50 watts or whatever. You can turn it up as high as low as you want.
Yes, of course. Okay, right.
And with the DDS, because that's set level,
yeah,
but it's worked out about right.
Mm.
And I've got a bit more coming out of the codan, but I've got I can just vary the tuning on the emitters when I'm running them parallel to do the
right. Yeah, sure.
That you just adjust each one.
So you're getting about 2 watts out of your codan as a PA.
Yeah. If it's badly matched, you might need 10 or 20 watts. It just depends. You've got all the variability.
Well, that's the thing. That's the beauty of it,
yep.
is that you can really push things. That's what I like about it, is the fact that you can.
It's low impedance and it's not going to take off and all that crap.
No, that's a good point too. Yeah, no, it's good to understand all these sort of variables.
I looked at the design. You know those old number 19 set afterburners that had 4807?
Yes.
Of course, they took the 50 ohms from the number the set and amplified the 10 watts, the 6 watts to 7 watts.
Yes.
But they are simple as anything. It's just a coil that's tapped, very lossy coil, and a pot, and that just feeds the grids of the valves, not tuned at all.
Right.
So that's because I had 6 watts to play with.
Yes.
Most of it was lost, but enough went into the valves to make 7 watts.
Okay.
So
yes,
they were happy about that.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So you could rebias. I just looked at that circuit. That's what I based one of mine things on. Just rebias it for Class C. And a pity I threw all those. I had tons of those. I just threw them out because they just had crap things.
Yeah.
But they could have been quite useful.
They could have been useful down. So this is always the case. You never throw anything out. You've got to hoard stuff. No, it's a good point. No, look, it's good to sort of look at these from an obtuse angle and understand. So the problem is that I'm just totally uninitiated. You know, I'm starting to experiment a bit more, and I mucked around a lot today, and I actually learned a fair bit mucking around and stuffing things up and making mistakes. And I think that's the way you've got to do it. You've got to be prepared to sit down and make lots of errors and trial things out and wreck a few things along the way. And it's just having the headspace and
You
mindset
need
to do it.
plenty of room and plenty of time.
That's time is the thing, but this is
uh,
probably a good time to have time.
Yeah, well, I was working on this till 4 o'clock this morning, I think. And,
Yes. Then you received a phone call at 11. Yeah.
I needed to get up anyhow. But I couldn't go to sleep anyhow. The bloody police chopper was flying over, doing circles for 2 hours.
They do circles here too. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
just going. And you try to sleep, then it goes away. Oh, thank God, then it comes back again.
Yep, that's right. They've got their big camera which can take 10,000 faces and identify everybody.
Exactly. They all go to goal.
Yeah.
And they're probably trying to identify them. And the new choppers, the French one used to have a whine noise. This one is a thumping, aggressive, noisy, bloody thing.
Yes, I hear it.
And it's probably you could hear it 10 miles away. And they don't care. Annoying, rubbishing people's sleep.
I know.
For catching somebody with,
I know.
God knows what. Probably not so important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're probably, it's just...
They've certainly ramped up the surveillance, that's for sure. It's very evident.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But anyway...
But the good news about... Look, thank you for that. That's good advice. Now, in the short term, if the BMITS pops, I thought it had today because I just couldn't restart it. I changed those capacitors and I did everything and that we were talking about earlier, and it just... Nothing. Wouldn't oscillate, wouldn't buffer, nothing. Nothing at all. And I pulled the thing out about 10 times, stuffing, and then I put the originals back in, then it started to come alive a bit. I thought, hello, this is a prospect, but then it's the problem is that the stuff's mounted on the chassis is shorting out. And I think the variable capacitor and the oscillator was shorting out.
It was so badly built. Like everything, could have been made on cardboard.
Yeah, I know. It's like that.
The thinnest aluminium you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, it must have been done on a whim, and the problem is the chassis has been used about half a dozen times for different projects, and they've cut things off.
Yeah, so it's less strength.
And it really hasn't got any strength at all, and the front part just sort of waves in the wind.
I know,
yeah. So these are issues. But look, as a PA, it's all contained and everything, but for the oscillators, I might just look for another solution, but that sounds good.
Well, look, I'd investigate just feeding the Codan directly and using it as an amp, and you'll get at least 45 watts out of it.
Yeah, just straight into the 807 grids.
Yep, and, just use it as a standalone amplifier.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm with you. Yes, of course, I will. In the short term, I probably will. That could work well.
There's nothing to go wrong with it.
No, and it's already in system. It's already set up. It's basically set and forget situation. Yeah, putting out about 45 watts is about what am I putting out now? About 60, 70 maybe. But that would probably work as well as any.
And just turn up. Have it playing something and just turn up the power until it starts to sound crap and just turn it back a bit.
Well, I've got the current meter here anyhow, so I can see when it starts to deflect negatively.
Yeah,
so
that's right. That's when it starts to...
and I've got a Crow. I'm looking at everything on the Crow, that's also good. Yeah, no, good advice. No, we'll try and forge a pathway, but I'd keen to sort of stick with AM if I can, and we'll find a solution, various solutions maybe. But those power supplies, they must have come from something else. There's one here that belongs to the modulator, which I'm not using. And that could be a standalone power supply for another MITS. I mean, it's brilliant.
Talk about overbuild, like he had a separate power supply for the modulator that could run a 500 watt meter.
I think it all started from there. I think you probably had a whole heap of these power supplies from some other project or some other build, and then thought, I'll just use this as a starting point, and you just didn't think about I suppose you didn't have any issue with space because it's all in that big cabinet. But look, it's considering how much mucking around I've done. I can't believe I haven't burnt out those 807s. Perhaps
they're very robust valves. They are incredibly robust.
Yeah,
I mean, they're the fact that they're still around now. They'd be one of the most well-used known valves in the world.
Yep.
And of all the ones I've got, I've really have rarely come across one that's down in emission or is broken. I mean, often they're white because they've been smashed. It's cracked, but they seem to take the punishment. And like the big meters here, it's got the original valves when I started using it. In 70 whatever.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's the same valves, the 807s and the one of the QB300s and that.
Yes,
all the same.
All the same.
And nothing seems to go wrong.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's remarkable, really, that they've endured so well. But they are the sort of the standard, or it's the the archetype, really.
I
the
think
807.
when RCA designed them, they really, of course, they had the SXL6, and it's just an RF version of that.
That's right, exactly, with the anode on the top.
Yeah.
But when you think even that teleradio, that 3BZ, that's got an 807 in it, running at about 10% of its potential. So they used them everywhere, didn't they?
They did actually use them in America. The first TV sets had them as line output tubes.
Oh, did they really? Okay.
But they were more expensive, and they made the cheaper TV valves.
Ah, right.
Which I don't think they last as long.
Yes. Okay, interesting.
So that's a consumer item.
Yeah. Well, you certainly see a lot of them at Hamfests and other things, and I've got quite a stash now. I'd have at least 10 here as backups for backups, so if I ever need them.
Oh, yeah, you need to keep...
Need to have a little stash of them.
Yep, I think when... In a few years, and the world's totally collapsed, the world technology will be running off 807.
Yes, we're back to 807.
Back to the end of the world wireless station.
Yes, that's it. 807s and Jenny motors will be whirring away in 62 sets and 19 sets. That's right. We'll be back to the future using all this.
I don't think. Yes. I was reading something about Lebanon. Apparently, they have power 2 hours a day.
Oh, really?
And private people have set up little generating things in the neighbourhood and extension cords for people. But the problem is that now you can't get fuel, so it's going to be a major city with no electricity soon.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
shocking. That is incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible.
How are people going to live?
They won't. There'll be a mass, and it'll be all unreported, and it'll be one of those catastrophic.
Oh, yeah.
Lost civilization situations, I think. It'll be terrible.
Electricity just...
well, it's probably happened in Syria all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, they were civilized places, and now they're just sort of nothing.
They've gone back to burning cow dung.
That's exactly it. And we don't really hear anything about it. It's just all sort of happening in a terrible way, and that's all beyond our radar.
Yeah.
But
I guess civilizations go up and down in
they do.
Mode, like
they always have.
Up one day, down the next millennium.
And look, things will happen faster now because everything is sort of expedited. So we sort of we move between these oscillations really quickly. And I think the recent events is sort of bringing that into sharp profile a bit because the stock market is doing quite well.
I've been thinking it's taken a long time to come.
Yeah.
And
yep.
You're
right.
Sizzling here. Just this mic, I think.
Okay.
So I think it's it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So anyway, the technical stuff's interesting, and
yes. Well, it's good. I appreciate your input there. Excuse my naivety, because it is I sort of read about these things, and you sort of read about it, and you contextualise it, and it's sort of all profiled and written down. But when it comes to actually the coalface, when you're actually doing stuff, it's a very different world, really, because you have to, I think you have to have a deeper knowledge, or at least a cause and effect understanding with the junk that you're using a bit more. And
it's also, you can get a very simple circuit in the handbook or whatever. When you start to make it, nothing's simple. It's always more complex.
It seems to be,
and it's not, a very simple circuit with a few components, you can get confused.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know how they design chips. I mean, really.
Yeah, it's all so micro.
Yeah.
I know. But
some people really know what they're doing, and particularly the modern stuff. On me, surface mount and a million circuit boards and stuff. I'm just back in the dark ages.
Well, likewise, I'm even further back. I mean, I don't have any really idea. The basic understanding of Ohm's law is about all I've got.
That's really all you need to know. Maybe Kirchhoff's laws are good as well.
Yes.
But they're the things, and I think so that the chip supply's gone too. So just as well we can rely on these things.
Oh, yes, that's right. This is the last frontier.
It is, and you can't go to JCAR or electronic components. You've got to make do with what's in the junk pile.
That's it. You've got to rat the old equipment and pull out the parts.
Yeah, that's right. So you changed that capacitor on the
yes, look, I did all of that. And it didn't. And I actually found exact capacitors in the end. I ransacked some things and found exactly what I needed, but it takes about 3 hours to get source the components and put them in, and then nothing worked, nothing at all. It wouldn't oscillate, nothing happened, and then, but I think the problem is mechanically pulling the thing out moves stuff around, and I think there was a short out somewhere in the oscillator, and that was what was causing that problem. So I went and changed the components back, and I might have inadvertently knocked something. Look, it's just ridiculous. It's one of those chase your tail situations.
That, like, a crystal oscillator is a pretty simple thing to build, 6v6 or something. That one is overly complex. You can drive 807s with one 6v6 or 6AQ5. Crystal oscillator's got enough drive to drive the 807s. Why is there another valve there? I don't know.
Yeah, well,
it's not a dual band rig maybe, but there's no reason for it.
No, fair enough. Well, there's the there's a 6v6 oscillator, and what's the 12 QB? What is it? QE7 or something? Is the oscillator tube? Anyhow, it's a it does look overcomplicated, and it's very tight. And he's used his
resistors everywhere.
Yeah, no, he's used all these Waltham wires, and it's nicely angled, and it looks very pretty. But maybe point-to-point wiring on a bigger chassis would be a much better idea, and as you say, a simpler circuit as well. I noticed that there's provision for a lot more metering than what's on the front panel. All those inputs down the bottom are all actually connected, so you probably could put a meter rack in, and maybe he did have an accessory to do more comprehensive metering. But look, I don't know. I'm past it. I've got the circuits now, so that's something. But anyhow, we'll soldier on. I won't have another few hours free for a while.
Well, it's working, and that's
look, it's sort of going. I just don't touch it, don't breathe on it, don't look at it. That's the thing. It's so tetchy. It's it's obviously the R&C are not right, because you've only got to look at it, and it goes out.
There's a lot in that. You look back in the 20s, they worked out capacitance and inductance. You have to have the right amount of it.
Yes, you have to have the right ballparks. Yes, exactly. And it has to be sort of set within a certain parameter, rather than all sort of high up in its performance thing. Yep. So I think that's the other problem. I think it's not set in its sweet zone, so it's really tetchy. It tunes up much better on 1825 than it does on 1868.
It shouldn't be.
It should be easy.
All my stuff just doesn't matter, from broadcast band to 2 megs. It just works. It should be like that.
Yeah.
But and they'll work on, all my stuff works on 2.3 megs and 5. Just tap up the coil. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the valve is, because when I got that your original methods with the 2807s back, was you flogged for years on.
Yes, that was used continuously for about 2 years.
And I thought, the valves will be stuffed. I put them in my test meter. Got 45, 50 watts of AM.
Oh, really?
Wow. They were just as good as any of the other 807s I've got.
Yes, incredible.
So, and they were just sitting there hitting away.
Yeah, they was humming away. They were doing really well. It went for a bit of a spaz towards the end, but I think there may have been something else at play there. I don't know.
Yeah, that was so complex underneath too. I just stripped all that shit away.
Yeah.
It was built like out of automotive wire. You couldn't even cut.
Yeah.
It was like it was built for a tank or something.
Yes. Well, that certainly had a heavy build. There's no problem there. Yeah. But they actually worked. I mean, look at the onset. That worked really well. That was great, and it was easy to tune, and the sweet spots were easy to find, and it actually was quite fine. Yeah. There's no problem with that at all. Yeah. So that was a good solution for a while. But anyhow, other things will come along.
We'll let you get back to the news, Zach, or anyone else.
Yeah, I suppose so. I'll do something. I'll find something to play. Yeah. But thanks for your input there, and we'll keep up with the latest, and we'll hear no doubt from your 6CM5 endeavours down the track. Have you had a chance to do any more tests on that system?
Well, all I have got, I have been modulating the meters with the school amp.
Yeah,
I've got, and that seemed to work okay, but. It's not as far as a hi-fi amp.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it'll give 100. It's on the verge. It's not quite there. And I think it'd be really cute to have a school amp in the system.
Yes.
But maybe if I've got
would.
new 6CM5s, that maybe my best ones are bad. This could be okay.
Yeah, well, you're saying most of them had very low emissions, yeah, it's a bit
or
strange.
you could just put a chip in there and...
just light them up for like light globes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what J-Card did with their valve kit.
And run it like that. So...
yes, he could. Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it's all looks. But you have a nice little window. That's what they used to have, wasn't it? A little window, and you can see all the tubies lined up, and they all...
Oh,
yes, little city of lights. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to do that.
Yeah. But anyhow,
We'll
all right.
let you do the
all the
usual
usual.
now, so you've got listeners interstate.
That's right. Yes, theoretically. Yep. I've noticed the current's sort of hanging in there, so I think things are reasonably okay for the moment.
We'll let you get on with it then.
Okay, thanks, Dave. All good.
Okay,
We'll
bye.
catch up soon. Cheers for now. All right. Well, we'll kick off as we usually do with something from the 20s, and this is something I should have been doing a lot more today. I should have been outside. vk3sl.
Where is that noise? Outside. A pal of mine went calling upon a girl last night. The rain began to fall and fall, it rained with all its might. I met my pal this morning and said, did you get wet? He winked at me and said, oh gee, you ain't heard nothing yet. 'Cause outside the rain was pouring down. I felt mighty blue. Outside the wind was howling round, and she was lonesome too.
3, 4, 5.
Outside we heard the thunder crash. She looked at me and sighed. Though she knew it wasn't right, she let me stay all night. Yes, she did.
Yes, she did.
Yes, outside.
And that was Harry Reza and the 6 Jumping Jacks, and a classic light beam recording full of intermod distortion, something we have a lot of here. And they were active a lot in the 20s. They had so many pseudonyms, and they played on every label. They knew how to milk the system. And the 6 Jumping Jacks, Harry Reza, quintessential 1920s fare on an old Brunswick. And we haven't had a light beam record for a while, and I think that, yes, cuts the mustard. All right, another 78. This one's on the Buyer, and we'll get the Buyer into action, and we'll have a listen to this. Who is it? It's Duke Ellington, of course, and a big hit of his from 1930. This is the Cotton Club recording, Ring Them Bells. Duke Ellington from 1930, Ring Them Bells. That's an original on a 10-inch HMV 78 test missions on 160 and UHF, and we're sampling the collection here. Nostalgia on the wireless. Now, the other side of that is a tune from the film Check and Double Check. It's Three Little Words. And again, this has got vocal refrain. Actually, the Rhythm Boys. It's not the Rhythm Boys we usually associate with Paul Whiteman. This is Duke Ellington and his mob, but I reckon we'll have a listen to the side. I haven't heard it for a while, and unfortunately it's got a fracture, this record. I didn't notice that. I must have accidentally damaged it. Never mind. It doesn't matter. I've had to sort of work out levels a little bit here because the buyer with this ELAC cartridge is really hot. This cartridge has a really high output, this variable reluctance cartridge, which we've just put back into service. Testing it now, and the output's really high, so I have to make a few seasonal adjustments as we go. Anyhow, let's have a listen to Three Little Words. Back on the buyer, back in the groove, and this is vk3sl testing.
give for that wonderful phrase. You hear those three little words. That's all I'd live for the rest of my days. And what I feel in my heart, they tell sincerely. No other words can tell it half so clearly. Three little words, a little letter, which simply mean I love you.
Ellington at the Cotton Club, and a recording from 1930, Three Little Words. This is vk3sl testing on 160 and on UHF. And the disclaimers, there's also a YouTube streaming service which is active at the moment. So if you want to go and have a look on YT, there is a dedicated space to these missions. Just look up my call sign and they all will be revealed. And there's also another streaming service as well, which can be accessed via the qrz.com page for my call. So any radio hams can access that one. It's a secondary system. It's up and running. Actually, there's also a blog spot, which I don't check very often, but it's there. And that's, again, my call sign, vk3sl.blogspot.com. So if you go and find that, you'll also find an email address if you wish to not get in touch with me. All right, we'll backtrack a few years now, playing Real 78s this afternoon from the collection here. Not that it's a great collection, it's a rather obscure, just a potpourri of secondary records that others picked over in the op shops over the years. This one happens to be an old Acco record from 1925. It's an acoustic, and it is the Rialto Orchestra. It's Jeffries and his Rialto Orchestra from the Rialto Club in London. And it's a recording from the show Mercenary Mary, and a track called I'm a Little Closer to You. VK3, hey, what's happening? I've got to initiate here. I think we're right to go. Mr. Jeffries and his Rialto Orchestra from London in 1925. A track called I'm a Little Closer to You. There we go. I think I might sample the other side of that Brunswick record I played earlier. I want to hear it with the ELAC cartridge. Keen to hear how it sounds compared to the other system. So this is the side B, the B side of the Six Jumping Jacks record, which we kicked off with a few moments ago. So I reckon we'll have a listen to this now. It is, that's, what's it? Mine or Mine, I think it is. Let me have a look. I'll lean over and check the label. Oh, it's called That's Her Now. It's another one of those great sort of caricatured records from the 20s with Tom Stax as the vocalist. He was the vocalist with the Six Jumping Jacks, and it's all a bit tongue-in-cheek, and that's what I like about these 20s records. They don't take themselves too seriously. Anyhow, we'll kick off now with That's Her Now, vk3sl.
Who was that lady I never say seen? That's her now. I love her, boy, and how I take pleasure in announcing that's her now. Yes, sir, I'm set now, got a lucky break somehow. I take pleasure in announcing that's her now. If I act cuckoo, I've got good reason to be. Just take a look who has gone and tumbled for me. It won't be long now, gonna take that certain vow. I take pleasure in announcing that's her now.
Tom Stax, who sadly passed away at the Coconut Grove fire in 1932. He went in to rescue his drum kit and unfortunately didn't come out. He came out originally, and yet that's an object lesson. Don't go and save your musical instrument because he may not come back. Sadly, he met his demise in that big horrible fire which killed a lot of people in that year. So he probably didn't want to hear that because he's so sort of fresh and out there. Poor old Tom Stax. He was the vocalist with the Six Jumping Jacks. Harry Reeser was the banjo player and led the group. You see them turn up everywhere under different pseudonyms. The Jazz Pilots, the Jumping Jacks, Harry Reeser's band. They recorded for almost every label. And we're just sampling some 20s records. Just took a batch off the shelf, and this one's got a bite out of it. It's a record that's been chewed. Probably by the rat invasion. We've got a big problem with rats. They've eaten all Kate's vegetables, and they're just stripping the place. And I don't know what to do about them. They are out of control. And I don't like killing things. So I don't know how I'm going to work this one out. Well, how do we get there? In my hand, I have an Angelus New Electrobeam 78 from about 1928, made in Australia by the Angelus Record Company. I think this was sort of probably made by Vocalion or something for Coles or one of the big department stores. Anyhow, it is an overseas release. It's Vincent Lopez and his Casa Lopez Orchestra, and a recording of Happy Days Are Here Again. And we probably won't hear Mr. Lopez's announcement because he usually announces his records because there's a bite out of the record. So I think, can't remember, I haven't heard this for a long time, but I have a feeling that this record has got that great carbon mic condensed sound. It's a signature sound from the 20s, and let's see what happens. vk3sl.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again. All together, shout it now, there's no one who can doubt it now. So let's tell the world about it now. Happy days are here again. Your cares and worries are gone. There'll be no more from now on. Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. So let's sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again.
Carbon mics have never sounded so bad, so good. Yes, euphoric distortion and characteristic sounds in the 20s on an old Electrobeam Angelus record. I've got to play the other side. It's the Clevelanders. I hope it's got the same condensed sound. It's a sound that I associate with the times, and we have to have, I've just got this tracked in. Oh, this is great. The bar, I can do fast starts. Always like the idea of doing fast starts. Here we go. Off we begin.
Lucky me, I'm lucky lovable you. Aren't we the happiest two? I don't deserve such wonderful bliss. I knock on wood and thank my lucky star for this, for who am I? Nobody at all. How and why did you ever fall? Now I see dreams do come true. Lucky me to have lovable you.
Sweet nostalgia on 160 metres and on UHF. This is vk3sl testing, of course, and we are playing 78s directly to air using vintage equipment. I'm using a Bayer turntable, 16-inch turntable, which I've just re-rubberated with the rubbery new, so it's working a little bit better than it usually does. And good for fast starts. And what we have, a Autophon tone arm, which has been patched together out of about 3 tone arms. Very agricultural, and the pickup in this instance is an ELAC mirror twin from the 1950s. I think this one was X3KZ, and we've just put this back into service because the needles were all, or the compliance, the rubbers were all stuffed, and I'm using my new rubbery new product to try and to make everything work as well, to make everything sort of back into compliance and into serviceability. All right, another record from the stash, this random stash. I don't catalogue the records here. They're just sort of in very broad categories, and I like to just pull them out of the shelf and see what happens. This is Australian. This recording from 1930, and it is Beryl Newell playing the piano, and Des Tooley, she's a great vocalist from that period. And it's a track from the film The King of Jazz. This is on an old parlophone, and we're going to listen to Happy Feet. VK3SL, testing.
Those happy feet, give them the low down beat and they begin dancing. I've got those 10 little tapping toes, and when they hear a tune I can't control my dancing heels to save my soul weary blues. Can't get into my shoes because my shoes refuse to ever go weary. I keep cheerful on an earful of music sweet, 'cause I've got happy feet.
Beryl Newell really knew her stuff. She played that really well. It was a great performance of Happy Feet, an Australian record, and a very warm hello to Jamie, who just chimed in with a text. Hi, Jamie, and thank you for your message. And I'm glad you enjoyed our chat earlier on, and it's great to hear from you. So we'll look forward to another special missions with you and with Frank. We'll hope to have one in the next few weeks. I've just got to sort of see a pathway. Things are a little bit tight because there's a lots of fit in this month, but we'll get there. We certainly will. And for those who are unacquainted, when Jamie comes on the program, it is a really brilliant missions because we have all this deep nostalgia of a unique kind, and we have Jamie brings some of his remarkable collection in to share, and we hear things you'd never hear anywhere else because they are unique. He's got one of the most incredible collections anywhere, and I feel honoured that he's happy to share them with us here on our programmatic. I think I'll turn this over. In fact, Jamie, you're probably enjoying this, and you probably have this record. But it's nice to hear something Australian. And Des Tooley, that Australian vernacular, you can hear her accent, Australian accent, her broad diphthongs. Let's have a listen to the other side. It's Ragamuffin Romeo, and again, Beryl Newell at the piano, and Des Tooley is the vocalist. A record probably almost certainly from 1930, the year that The King of Jazz came out.
Tale I'll tell to you about the love of someone who they call a ragamuffin Romeo. Sigh and wail as lovers do when thinking of his sweetie too. Poor little ragamuffin Romeo. In dreams only they had ever met, and at dawn he'd away. Oh, so lonely for his Juliet, and then he would take his little sack and hit the road, picking rags at each abode. Poor little ragamuffin Romeo.
At the piano, and Des Tooley. And Ragamuffin Romeo, an Australian record produced in Sydney in about 1930-ish, maybe 31. The film came out in 1930, The King of Jazz. Both the last two tracks came from that movie. And sampling 78's live to air, and this is vk3sl, and we just sort of do this every day. It's a bit of a pathology. It's something just to fill a time gap, and I don't know what else to say about these missions because there's nothing to say. It really does not make sense. Anyhow, we have a TikTok tale on the table now. So I don't know which one it's going to be. I can't remember what I've played. I've been playing quite a lot of TikTok tales lately, but these are John Craig productions from the 1950s, early 1950s, from Sydney. And we've got quite a handful here, which I'll need to dub off at some point. I've got to get organised with that. In the interim, we'll put the record directly to air and have a listen to a TikTok tale. vk3sl.
Tick, tock, tales. Hear that clock ticking? Forget what you're doing for 4 minutes. Sit down, relax, and listen to the story of Mad Meg. Death had come swiftly to Mad Meg. 1 minute she had been scurrying across the road, making her rounds of the garbage cans, children jeering at her from the footpath, and now she lay in the middle of the road, a bundle of filthy, old black rags, a small crowd staring at her in morbid curiosity, and a young man trying to explain.
I had no idea she'd try and run across in front of the car, officer.
Oh, you've got nothing to worry about. I saw the whole thing myself. Poor old Meg. She'll be sadly missed around these parts.
You knew her?
Oh, everybody knew Mad Meg. Quite a character she was. Slipped in the parks and doorways, scrounged her food from the back doors of houses or the garbage cans. Yeah, a bit mental, they do say.
What a terrible way to finish up. No friends, no money, no home. Yet she must have had a home once. I wonder what brought her to this.
Yes, old Meg had had a home and a husband, but that was a lifetime ago. She'd not been Mad Meg then, but Mrs. Margaret Kinney, and the day she saw her new home was one she would never forget.
What a beautiful home. Oh, George, I'm so thrilled. But it must have cost thousands.
Only the best for you, my dearest. Remember, that's what I promised you the day we got married.
That was less than 12 months ago, and you were just starting in business on your own.
Mine is a good money-making business.
You've never told me just what you do.
That's no concern of such a pretty head as yours. Now, if you'd like to have a party, a sort of housewarming...
Oh, George, may I?
It was the night of the party that Margaret learned what her husband did for a living. 2 unexpected guests arrived early.
Mrs. Margaret Kinney?
That's right, but I don't think
We're
I know...
detectives. We have a warrant to search this house.
That's ridiculous. What do you expect to find?
Forged £5 notes. You evidently don't know your husband made his living printing counterfeit money.
I certainly didn't know, and what's more, I don't believe it. And when George comes home...
I'm afraid he won't be coming home. I'm sorry to have to break it to you like this. Your husband is dead. Killed himself when we went to arrest him.
Margaret spent the next 3 months in a nursing home, whilst doctors fought to save her sanity. When she came out, it was to find herself friendless, penniless, and without a house. For the home she had believed hers was not been paid for, and all the furniture would have to be sold to pay doctor's bills. It was on the last night before moving out that she discovered the money in an old battered suitcase she had never seen before.
£5,000. Oh, nice new £5 notes. Those detectives couldn't have searched very thoroughly. With this, I can start a new life.
Then the cruel truth hit her. She remembered her husband's words.
Mine is a good money-making business.
And this is the money you made. Not worth the paper it's printed on. Oh, how I hate you, George Kinney, and all our friends that cut me dead when they passed me in the street, that never once visited me in hospital. Well, I don't want friends or sympathy. I'll go through life alone, hating everybody and everything. And you, George Kinney, most of all.
As the years passed by, Margaret's bitterness and hatred grew. It became an obsession. People began to sense it, and work became harder to get, until finally the obsession took control of her mind. She became Mad Meg.
Mad Meg, is that the only name you knew her by? No relatives, no friends, killed by a car at 10 a.m. this morning. Is that the end of the report?
Not quite. Sewn in the linings of the old rag she was wearing, we found £5,000 in battered, weather-beaten, but perfectly genuine £5 notes.
That is the story of Mad Meg. Never let bitterness blind you to the difference between good and bad. Be back soon with another story that is different. May I have your attention? Thank you. You've been listening to TikTok Tales, a John Craig radio short.
Got an invitation to visit in Manhattan with my highfalutin kin. Ordered from the catalog some fancy clothes. Look so stylish from my head to toes. Saw every side, even did some flirting. Did all right till my My feet took to hurting, so I slipped off my shoes. When I thought they couldn't see, but they must have, 'cause this is what they always sang to me. Put your shoes on, Lucy, don't you know you're in the city? Put your shoes on, Lucy, it's really such a pity. Lucy can't go barefoot wherever she goes, 'cause she loves to feel the wiggle of her toes. Put your shoes on, Lucy, 'cause you're here in old New York. You'll get by all right if you let 'em hear you talk. All the city slickers love that southern drawl, so give 'em that honey child and hide your all. Lucy, let the good things happen, Lucy. Won't you stop that yapping? How you act will be the death of me. Won't they have skyscrapers down in Tennessee? Put your shoes on, Lucy, even though they kind of pinch. Stop balking, you gotta do some walking, that's a cinch. Use your party manners, you'll need them and how. Put your shoes on, Lucy, you're a big girl now. How you act will be the death of me. Won't they have skyscrapers down in Tennessee? Put your shoes on, Lucy, even though they kind of pinch. Stop balking, you gotta do some walking, that's a cinch. Use your party manners, you'll need them now. Put your shoes on, Lucy, you're a big girl now.
And we just heard Miss Meakin, Beryl Meakin, that's right. Beryl Meakin on a John Mystery Top Pop 78 from 1950. And that was with Bob Ramjan and his Rhythm. And prior to that, a TikTok Tale, John Craig production from Sydney in the 1950s, same era. I like these Beryl Meakin records. I think I might play the other side, and then I will need to queue up something for the next little while because I have to go inside. So we'll hear side 2, another Beryl Meakin track, and this one is Take It Easy, Arthur. I'm vk3sl testing, and shortly we'll defer to another episode of The Thunderbirds.
I live next door to a certain girl. I saw a fellow call on her one day. Though I didn't mean to eavesdrop, this is what I heard her say. Dear, and take it easy, Arthur. What's your hurry? Can't we stop and have a chat? Now you're here, please take it easy, Arthur. Before I'm seeing visions, at least take off your hat. Have a heart, be careful what you're doing. Now you've turned the lights out and I'm so upset. No, 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 Arthur, don't make noise. Oh, Arthur, oh, what joy. Got me seeing stars and hearing music. And I'm so glad we met. This night I won't forget. Oh, Arthur. laugh and have a chat. Now you're here, please take it easy, Arthur. Before I'm seeing visions, at least take off your hat. Have a heart, be careful what you're doing. Now you've turned the lights down and I'm so upset. No, Arthur, don't make noise. Oh, Arthur, oh, what joy. Got me seeing stars and hearing music. And I'm so glad we met. This night I won't forget. At last you fixed my television set.
Oh, I'm glad it was her television set. That was Beryl Meakin and a John Mystery's Top Pop 78 from 1950 with Bob Brampton and his rhythm. This is vk3sl testing, of course, and nothing else to it. And before we hear an episode of the Thunderbirds, I think I might play the latest from the National Film and Sound Archive upload on YT. The NFSA have some really amazing stuff that's from the Film Australia archives, which has been made public. And was brought to my attention the other day, the episode about the Lighthouse Keeper. This Lighthouse Keeper on Matsuka Island. And it is really compelling. Now, I don't know how, hopefully it'll come over radio okay. There's a fair bit of dead air and sort of reflective stuff in it, but that's, or visual reflective stuff, but I think that's okay. It holds its own, and it's a really interesting tale. So let's hear about the lonely lighthouse keepers on Matsuka Island for the next 10 minutes. vk3sl.
Light bearing 152 degrees. Flash twice. 5 seconds dark. Flash once. Marking the way for ships. Course south-southeast. Steaming 15 knots. Port Hobart 300 sea miles south. Australia is the largest island in the world, with a coastline stretching 12,000 miles. 237 lights mark the Australian coast, warning seamen of reefs and shallows, pointing the way through safe channels. Lighthouses mark the southern promontories, where ships from Suez and London round the Australian Cape. Along the tropic north coast and the Barrier Reef, lights guide traffic from the China Seas. Ships from the Americas approaching Australia through the sea lanes of the Pacific. Latitude 43 degrees, longitude 146 degrees. The chart identifies Matsuka Island and the Black Witch Rocks, southernmost Australian light, below Tasmania. Visibility of light 25 miles. Landfall 1,000 feet above the sea. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Glenn Seymour, the third keeper, completes his watch. 3 lighthouse keepers with their families live on Matsuka, and these are the only people on the island. Andy Mitchell, the head keeper, and Len Jackson, the second, begin the first duty of the day, to service the light. Ships at sea rely on lighthouses for their safety. At night, the light must always be shown and must flash at the correct intervals. If the light were out, or flashing in wrong order, the point of land or danger would be wrongly identified. Everything must be exact. The mechanism of the light is driven by weights, very like a grandfather clock. It turns the prisms which pass before the lamp and concentrate its light into a series of flashes. By the order of these flashes, ships identify the light. A light flashing at the correct intervals must be exhibited from 15 minutes before dusk until sunrise. The women on Matsaika plan their domestic life to meet the isolation of the island. The supply vessel calls only 4 times a year and is often delayed for weeks by bad weather. They bake bread, preserve fruit, meat, eggs, and make jam. 6 months' supply of food is always in store for an emergency. After 2 years on the island, the Seymours are to go back to a mainland station. When they are transferred, Colleen will start school. Graham Jackson, her only young companion on the island, has started his schooling by correspondence. Later, he will continue his education on the mainland under a grant provided by the Lighthouse Service. Matsaika lies in the path of the roaring Forties, a high island exposed to gales and rain. But in the hollows, protected by low scrub from the winds and rough weather, Mrs. Mitchell has managed to grow a few flowers and vegetables. The supply ship brings half a dozen sheep when it calls. When fresh meat is wanted, everyone turns out to help catch one. Never fine for long on Matsaika. As the head keeper comes down to take the first watch, he knows a rough night lies ahead for those at sea. He records weather observations and sends them by pedal wireless to Cape Bruni, a transmission by landline to Hobart Weather Station, then to be passed on to shipping in Tasmanian waters and Bass Strait. DL, 7DL, Matsaika Island to Cape Bruni. Sea rising. Wind westerly. Velocity 60 miles per hour. Clouds cumulus, nimbus, and bractonimbus. Height 1,000 feet. Barometer 29.8. Falling. First, the keeper preheats the lamp to vaporize the kerosene. Then pumps kerosene stored in tanks below to the working pressure. He winds to the top of the tower the hanging weights which operate the clockwork mechanism. Throughout the night, he will check the pressure of the kerosene and wind the weights again every 25 minutes. 95 minutes to wait. There is time to relax. Every night the prisms revolve. The light flashes beat against the dark, and seamen identify the light from the cycle of its flashes. At 10 o'clock, the second keeper will begin his watch. The third watch is from 2 o'clock until 7. Every night, the watch unbroken. Four times a year, the store boat comes to Matsaika. 4 days in the year for contact with the outside world. Even so, there is little time lost in landing and transferring stores and people, for a change in wind direction and a swift-running sea can quickly make the landings unworkable, and the ship must run for shelter to a bay or cove. The new lighthouse keeper is brought ashore, and the Seymours taken off the island without ceremony. Tomorrow, the Cape York will service another lighthouse station, and the day after that, another. Each station has been waiting 3 months for Storeboat Day, for mail and news from friends on the mainland. In a few hours, the ship is gone again, and for another 3 months, life for the lighthouse keepers goes on as quietly as before.
Yeah, it's quite a compelling doco, and it strikes a resonance, having had that experience on one of the Bass Strait Islands in recent times, looking at the lighthouse keeper, the plight of the lighthouse keepers in a very remote setting on Matsaika Island. That is one of the most interesting of recent uploads from NFSA. I commend it thoroughly. All right, we'll continue now with an episode of the Thunderbirds. I need to go inside and light the fire. Everyone's practicing furiously. There's a storm of muzak inside the house, and I'm being lazy out here. I should be practicing, but I'm actually quite enjoying my little nostalgia trip. And we'll have an episode of the Thunderbirds, one with the famed Fire Flash. This was the nuclear-powered Concorde, or the plane. And this is one of their very early episodes. And yeah, this plane had a lot of issues because it was stuck in the sky. And that's the name of the episode. Now, I have to remember, I've got to discontinue the stream. So I'm terribly sorry if you're listening on the stream. I urge you to defer to the other stream because that's current and it's stable and it's hopefully working. And if you'd like to have a listen on the other stream, it'll continue there. But I can't play these on YT because they don't like it. And I got a strike last time I played an episode of the Thunderbirds. And I can't have too many strikes, 3 strikes, and I'm out. So that's not a good thing. So we'll have a listen now. And I'm sorry, folks. We will, in case you don't know where it is, there's a blog spot with information. And I think I mentioned this before, but yeah, just look up my call sign, vk3sl.blogspot.com, and then all will be revealed. The secondary stream is listed there, along with the email and stuff. So that might help.